Alright guys, welcome back to another episode of Forgotten Vehicles, where we take a deep dive into tanks that have either been removed, hidden, or simply faded into obscurity despite their once famous status. And today, we're looking at something truly special, the Panther II. Now, if you've been around War Thunder for a while, you already know this vehicle has a pretty legendary reputation. For many players, it's one of those mythical tanks. The kind you see in old replays, or maybe you catch one rolling around in a rare match and instantly think, wait, how does that guy have it? The Panther II is a perfect candidate for the series because it represents a unique blend of history, speculation, and War Thunder's own evolving meta. And honestly, I've got to admit, I still really enjoy this vehicle, even if it doesn't really fit into modern lineups anymore. So let's get into it. Why was the Panther II even a thing? What makes it so unique in game? And most importantly, why nobody really talks about it anymore despite it being one of the most iconic forgotten vehicles in War Thunder. To appreciate the Panther II in War Thunder, you've got to understand where it came from in real life. The Panther II was a German tank design project during World War II. Essentially, it was meant to be a heavier and more survivable version of the Panther tank. The Germans realized that while the Panther was a great balance between mobility, firepower, and protection, it was starting to fall behind against heavier Allied tanks, especially with the designs like the Soviet IS-2 and the American M26 Pershing appearing. So they wanted to improve it. Thicker armor, more standardization with the Tiger II, and possibly even mounting a more powerful gun. But here's the thing, the Panther II was never actually completed as a service vehicle. Only one prototype was built and it was eventually fitted with the Panther G turret just for testing. The whole project was cancelled in favor of the E-series tanks, and the Panther II basically became just another what-if tank in history. And that's where Thunder comes in. Gaijin loves to sprinkle in these prototypes and paper tanks to flesh out the tech trees, and the Panther II was one of the most famous examples. Back in the earlier days of War Thunder, the Panther II sat in the German tech tree as a rank 5 medium tank. At the time, it was a pretty strong pick. It had decent armor, a powerful gun, and mobility that let it keep up with most enemies of its BR. It came armed with the 88mm KWK gun, the same gun used on the Tiger II. That alone gave it a lot of respect. You had a medium tank that could punch through almost anything it faced while still being mobile enough to flank. Armor-wise, it was basically a beefed-up Panther with sloped frontal protection that could bounce a surprising amount of shells when angled. And mobility, thanks to its powerful engine, the Panther II could reach speeds that made it a really effective flanker. In other words, it was a tank that could do a bit of everything. Snipe, sure. Brawl, if you played smart. Flank and ambush, absolutely. And that versatility is why a lot of players, myself included, really enjoyed using it. It felt good in all kinds of scenarios, and that's something you don't always get at higher BRs. So, if it was that good, why don't people talk about it anymore? Well, here's the turning point. Gaijin removed the Panther II from the researchable German tree. Back in update 1.91, Night Vision 2019, Gaijin made the decision to remove a few vehicles from regular research. These were vehicles that were either prototypes, paper designs, or didn't really have a place in the historical lineup. And unfortunately, the Panther II was one of them. That means if you didn't research or purchase it before the removal, you can't get it anymore. The only people who still have the Panther II are the players who unlocked it back then. And this is where the forgotten part comes in. Since new players can't get their hands on it, and because the German tree has gotten so many new vehicle scenes, the Panther II has kind of faded out of the spotlight. Now, let's talk gameplay. Because despite being gone from the tech tree, the Panther II is still very much alive in matches if you're lucky enough to spot one. I'll be honest, it's still a really enjoyable tank. The 88mm is no joke, and combined with the Panther II's mobility, it's a fantastic gun platform. You can sit back and snipe targets at long range, or you can push aggressively and take advantage of your speed. The armor, while not invincible by modern standards, Still does the job if you know how to angle against equal tier opponents. You can bounce a surprising amount of shots. Of course, once you start seeing hit FS slingers, things get rough. But that's true for almost any World War II tank in the higher tiers. What makes it really fun though is the balance of speed and firepower. You're not stuck being a slow heavy like the Tiger II, and you're not undergunned like some of the lighter German mediums. It feels like a sweet spot. And I'll admit, every time I roll out the Panther II, I just have fun. It's one of those tanks where you can actually enjoy both sniping from a ridge or charging into a flank. For me, that's what makes it special. So, why don't people talk about the Panther II anymore if it's still this good? Well, there's a few reasons. It's unobtainable, firstly. If you're a new player, there's literally no way to grind for it. That automatically takes it out of the spotlight. Number 2, the ghost tank effect. Because it's rare to see, most players just don't bring it up anymore. It exists in this weird space where only veteran players still roll it out, and even then, it's not exactly meta-defining anymore. And honestly, that's kind of sad because it's still a great tank, but it's almost become more of a collector's item than an actual mainstay vehicle. So where does that leave the Panther II today? For me, it's one of those tanks that represents a different era of War Thunder. Back then, Gaijin wasn't afraid to throw in these experimental designs to pad out the tree, and players loved them. But as the game shifted toward more historical accuracy, a lot of those vehicles got swept under the rug. But there's still some prototypes in the game currently, so I don't know what really made them decide that. The Panther II might not be obtainable anymore, but it deserves to be remembered. Not just as a ghost tank, but as one of the most enjoyable mediums Germany ever had in the game. If you have it in your lineup, you know exactly what I mean. The combination of speed, armor, and that brutal 88mm gun makes it an absolute joy to play. And even though people don't really talk about it anymore, I still think it's a gem that deserves more recognition. So to answer the big question, why does nobody talk about it despite it being so good? Simple. It's rare, it's unobtainable, and it's overshadowed by newer toys. But if you're one of the lucky few who own it, trust me, you got a piece of War Thunder history in your hangar, and honestly, I'll keep enjoying it every time I roll it out.